The old house, nestled amongst the whispering willows, held more than just dust and memories within its creaking timbers. It held the echoes of a life lived, a life that in its twilight often drifted back to the quiet corners of forgotten dreams. Elias, with his silvered hair and eyes that had seen many seasons change, would often sit by the window, a hand gently resting on the worn armchair, and let his mind wander. The afternoon sun, a comforting, golden presence, would paint stripes across the faded rug, illuminating the motes of dust dancing in the air, each a tiny, transient world reflecting the passage of time. He wasn't thinking of grand adventures or world-changing events. No. Elias' forgotten dreams were far more personal, more intimately woven into the fabric of his youth, before the responsibilities of fatherhood, of providing, of simply existing, had gently, almost imperceptibly, nudged them aside. He remembered the faint scent of oil paint, a memory so vivid it almost made his nostrils twitch, a ghost of a sensation from a time when his hands, now gnarled with age, were smooth and eager, yearning to translate the vibrant chaos of his imagination onto canvas. He'd envisioned a studio, a sun-drenched haven where he could lose himself for hours, the world outside fading into a distant hum as he mixed colors, each stroke a conversation with his inner self. There was a particular shade of cerulean blue he'd been obsessed with, a color he'd seen in the vast expanse of the summer sky, the very color that seemed to hold all the secrets of infinity. He'd spent countless afternoons trying to recreate it, to capture its elusive quality, to bottle its essence onto his palate. He never quite managed it, not perfectly, but the pursuit itself was a joy, a silent promise to himself that one day he would master it, that he would paint skies that breathed and oceans that whispered. But then, life, as it often does, began to unfold in unexpected ways. He met Sarah, her laughter like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, her eyes mirroring the warmth of a crackling hearth. Their love story wasn't a whirlwind romance, but a slow, steady bloom, like a hardy rose unfolding its petals over many seasons. They built a home together, not grand, but filled with an undeniable warmth, a haven from the world's occasional chill. And with Sarah came Daniel, their firstborn, a tiny bundle of innocence and endless possibility. The arrival of Daniel was, for Elias, a seismic shift. The world, which had once revolved around his own artistic inclinations, now tilted dramatically, focusing its entire light on this new, precious life. The scent of oil paint was gradually replaced by the sweet, comforting smell of baby powder and freshly laundered blankets. The hours he'd once dedicated to his canvases were now spent cradling his son, singing lullabies, and marveling at the simple perfection of tiny fingers grasping his own. It wasn't a sacrifice, not in the traditional sense, but a natural evolution, a reordering of priorities that felt utterly right, utterly necessary. Yet sometimes, in the quiet of the night, when Sarah and Daniel were fast asleep, a yearning would stir within him. He'd glance at the dusty easel tucked away in the attic, a forgotten relic of a different life, and a pang, soft as a sigh, would brush against his heart. He wasn't sad, not really. How could he be with the boundless joy that Daniel brought into his life? But the dreams, the artistic aspirations, they were still there, dormant, like seeds waiting for the right moment to sprout, perhaps forever hidden beneath layers of responsibility and love. Later came Emily, a spirited whirlwind of sunshine and boundless energy, and then little Thomas with his quiet, thoughtful gaze. Elias found himself working longer hours, his hands growing rougher, calloused from his work at the local mill. The rhythmic clatter and hum of the machinery became his new soundtrack, replacing the imaginary symphony of colors and brushstrokes. He was a provider, a protector, a sturdy anchor for his growing family. He took immense pride in seeing his children thrive. in the warmth of their home, in the simple, everyday moments that wove themselves into the rich tapestry of their shared life. He taught Daniel how to fix things, patiently explaining the intricacies of gears and levers, watching with a proud smile as his son's brow furrowed in concentration. He taught Emily how to ride her bicycle, running alongside her, his hand steadying the seat until she finally found her balance and pedaled off with a triumphant squeal. He read stories to Thomas every night, his voice a low, comforting rumble, transporting them to fantastical lands of brave knights and mythical creatures, even as his own dreams of creation remained unspoken, tucked away like cherished letters in an old box. Years passed, as they always do, swift and silent. The children grew, their voices changing, their dreams taking flight. Daniel went off to study engineering, his mind sharp and analytical, a testament to Elia's patient guidance. Emily, with her bright, infectious spirit, pursued a career in teaching, her passion for nurturing young minds a mirror of her father's quiet dedication. Thomas, the thoughtful one, found solace in writing, his words painting vivid pictures, perhaps unknowingly carrying a flicker of his father's artistic soul. Elias and Sarah watched them go, each departure a bittersweet moment, a testament to their success as parents, yet also a reminder of the quiet emptiness that would settle into the house. But they weren't alone for long. Grandchildren arrived, a new generation of laughter and light, filling the old house with fresh energy. Elias would often find himself on the floor, building impossibly tall towers of blocks with little Maya, or drawing clumsy stick figures with young Leo, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of his forgotten artistic impulse stirring within him. One afternoon, Maya, with her curious eyes and boundless imagination, found an old, paint-stained box in the attic. Dust motes danced around it as she pulled it open, revealing a collection of dried-up paint tubes, brittle brushes, and a few canvases, yellowed with age, bearing the faint outlines of half-finished landscapes. "Grandpa," she asked, her voice a sweet, innocent query, "what are these?" Elias looked at the box, a wave of nostalgia washing over him, gentle and warm. He picked up a brush, its bristles stiff and unyielding, and a faint smile touched his lips. "These, little one," he said, his voice a soft murmur, "these were once my dreams, dreams of painting the world, of capturing its beauty on canvas." He didn't elaborate, didn't explain the full weight of what he had set aside, but a flicker of understanding, an intuitive knowing, seemed to pass between the old man and the young girl. Maya, with the effortless wisdom of childhood, didn't press. She simply sat beside him, watching him turn the old tools over in his hands, a quiet companion in that moment of gentle remembrance. Perhaps in that shared silence, a seed was planted, a faint echo of an artistic impulse passed down through generations. Sarah, ever observant, noticed the box, noticed the way Elias would sometimes gaze at it, a faraway look in his eyes. She never said anything directly, but one Christmas, nestled amongst his usual practical gifts, was a small, neatly wrapped package. Inside, he found a brand new set of oil paints, vibrant and fresh, and a selection of soft, unused brushes. There was also a blank canvas, pristine and white, brimming with the promise of new beginnings. His eyes, usually steady and calm, welled up slightly. He looked at Sarah, her face etched with the beautiful lines of a life lived fully, her smile as warm and inviting as ever. "Sarah," he whispered, a catch in his throat. She simply patted his hand, her gaze gentle. "It's never too late, my love," she said, her voice a soft melody. "Never too late to paint your skis." And so, slowly at first, tentatively, Elias began to paint again. Not with the fierce, youthful ambition of his earlier years, but with a quiet, contemplative joy. He set up a small easel in a sunlit corner of the living room, no longer hidden away in a dusty attic. The scent of oil paint, once a distant memory, now gently permeated the air, a familiar and comforting aroma. His first attempts were clumsy, his old hands a little stiff, his vision not as sharp as it once was. But with each stroke, with each mixing of colors, a part of him awakened, a part he thought had long since been lulled into an eternal slumber. He painted the whispering willows outside his window, their leaves a soft symphony of greens. He painted Sarah's profile, her gentle smile, the lines around her eyes telling stories of their shared journey. He painted the playful chaos of his grandchildren, their bright faces illuminated by the joy of childhood. He wasn't aiming for masterpieces, not anymore. His satisfaction came from the act of creation itself, from the simple pleasure of seeing colors blend and forms emerge under his hand. He found a different kind of fulfillment now, a deeper, more peaceful contentment. The forgotten dreams weren't forgotten at all. They had simply been waiting patiently for the right time, for the space to re-emerge, softened and enriched by the layers of life he had lived. His children, when they visited, would often stop by his easel, their expressions a mixture of surprise and quiet admiration. Daniel, the analytical engineer, would meticulously examine his father's brushstrokes, a newfound appreciation in his eyes for the artistry he now recognized. Emily, the teacher, would gush over the vibrant colors, her enthusiasm infectious. And Thomas, the writer, would sit quietly, observing his father at work, perhaps seeing in the canvas a reflection of his own creative spirit, understanding now, on a deeper level, the unspoken depths of his father's heart. One particularly sunny afternoon, a few years after he had resumed painting, Elias found himself working on a landscape. It was a scene from his childhood, a rolling meadow bathed in the golden light of late summer, a solitary oak tree standing sentinel against a cerulean sky. He was meticulously blending the blues, trying to capture that elusive shade he had chased so many decades ago. His hands moved with a practiced ease now, the stiffness having slowly, gracefully receded. He paused, a faint smile playing on his lips, and looked at the canvas. The sky, vast and luminous, shimmered with a depth he hadn't thought possible. He had finally, after all these years, found his cerulean. It wasn't the perfect, idealized blue of his youthful imagination, perhaps, but it was his cerulean, imbued with the wisdom of age, the tenderness of fatherhood, and the enduring power of a dream rediscovered. He realized then that the dreams hadn't been forgotten. They had been transformed, nurtured by the very life that had seemed to push them aside. His love for Sarah, the boundless joy of his children, the warmth of his family, these weren't obstacles to his artistic aspirations, but rather the very wellspring from which his renewed creativity now flowed. Each stroke of his brush carried with it the quiet strength of his journey, the unspoken narratives of his fatherhood, the gentle echoes of a life lived with purpose and love. The old house continued to stand, a silent witness to these gentle awakenings. The willows outside still whispered their ancient secrets, but now inside there was also the faint, sweet scent of oil paint, a testament to a father who, in his quiet perseverance, had shown that dreams, like old friendships, can always be revisited, always rekindled, and sometimes even more beautiful in their second bloom. The sun would continue to paint its golden stripes across the faded rug, and Elias would continue to paint his world, one brushstroke at a time, each creation a quiet celebration of the forgotten dreams that had, in the end, found their way home. He often wondered if his children ever truly understood the extent of what he had set aside. Not that he expected them to, or even wanted them to feel any sort of burden. It was simply a quiet thought that sometimes surfaced in the introspective hours of the afternoon. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he wouldn't trade a single moment of his life as a father, as a husband, for all the artistic fame or recognition in the world. The laughter of his children, the warmth of Sarah's hand in his, the simple, profound joy of family. These were the masterpieces he had truly created, the living, breathing art of his life. But there was a subtle richness now, a quiet completeness that had settled over him since he had picked up the brush again. It wasn't about achieving a certain level of skill or exhibiting his work. It was about the act itself, the connection to that younger version of himself, the one who had yearned to create. It was a dialogue with his past, a gentle affirmation that all parts of him, even the ones he had gently tucked away, were still valid, still present. Sometimes, when one of the grandchildren would toddle into his makeshift studio, a sun-drenched corner of the living room, they would watch him, their small faces wrapped with curiosity. Little Leo, with his bright, questioning eyes, once asked, "Grandpa, why do you paint?" Elias had paused, brush suspended midair, and thought for a moment. "I paint, Leo," he had said softly, "because it makes my heart sing. It's like telling a story without words." And perhaps that was the most profound realization of all. His life had been a grand story, filled with the vibrant hues of love, responsibility, and unwavering dedication to his family. The forgotten dreams of painting had been a subplot, a quiet thread weaving through the larger narrative. But now, in his later years, that subplot had been gently brought to the foreground, adding new depth and color to the already rich tapestry of his existence. He remembered one particularly challenging painting he was working on, a vibrant autumn scene with fiery reds and burnt oranges. The light was tricky, the interplay of shadow and sun demanding his full attention. He spent hours on it, his brow furrowed in concentration, completely lost in the creative process. Sarah had come in with a cup of tea, a silent offering, and simply watched him for a while. There was a quiet pride in her eyes, a knowing smile that spoke volumes. She understood, perhaps more than anyone, the significance of this renewed pursuit, the quiet joy it brought him. The feeling of the brush in his hand, the smooth glide of paint on canvas, the rich smell of linseed oil, these sensations were a balm to his soul, a gentle reminder of the continuous dance between what we aspire to be and what life shapes us into. And in his case, these two aspects of his being, the dreamer and the father, had not been mutually exclusive, but rather intimately intertwined, each enriching the other. He often thought about the concept of time, how it flows, ceaseless and unwavering. As a young man, he had felt a frantic urgency to achieve his artistic dreams, a sense that time was slipping away. But now, in his old age, there was a quiet patience, an understanding that some things simply take their own course, blooming in their own season. His dreams hadn't withered. They had simply waited like dormant seeds for the fertile ground of wisdom and contentment. And it wasn't just about painting. This reawakening seemed to have ripple effects in other areas of his life. He found himself more present, more appreciative of the small wonders of the everyday. The way the light caught the dewdrops on a spider web in the morning, the complex song of a robin outside his window, the intricate patterns on a fallen leaf. These details, which he might have overlooked in his younger, more harried days, now captured his attention, sparking a quiet sense of awe. He would sometimes sit on the porch swing with Sarah, their hands clasped loosely, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery oranges and gentle purples. And in those moments of shared silence, he would feel a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the life he had lived, for the family he had raised, and for the unexpected gift of rediscovering a piece of himself he thought was long gone. His children, seeing his renewed spark, sometimes brought him art supplies as gifts, a new palette knife, a book on landscape painting, a special kind of canvas. They didn't need to say anything. Their actions spoke louder than words, a quiet acknowledgement of his artistic spirit, a gentle encouragement to continue exploring this rediscovered facet of his identity. It was a beautiful reversal, in a way, of the support he had given them as they pursued their own paths. One day, Thomas, his writer son, was visiting. He sat beside Elias as his father meticulously added a touch of highlights to a painted cloud. "You know, Dad," Thomas began, his voice thoughtful, "I used to wonder why you never pursued your painting more seriously. I remember seeing your old sketches in the attic when I was a kid." Elias looked up, a soft smile on his face. "Life takes us down many paths, son," he replied, his gaze returning to the canvas. "And sometimes the most important paths are the ones we choose for others, for the ones we love. Your mother, you, Emily, Daniel, you were my greatest masterpieces, my greatest creations." Thomas nodded slowly, a deep understanding dawning in his eyes. "But now," he said, gesturing to the vibrant canvas, "you're painting for yourself again. It's beautiful, Dad." Elias chuckled softly. "It is, isn't it? It's like finding an old friend again, someone you thought you'd lost touch with, but who was always there waiting." And that was the truth of it. The forgotten dreams weren't a source of regret, but a testament to the transformative power of love and commitment. They were the quiet undercurrents that had always flowed beneath the surface of his life, waiting for the right moment to emerge, not as a replacement for his life as a father, but as a gentle, harmonious addition. His paintings began to accumulate, a colorful collection adorning the walls of the old house, each one a window into his soul, a reflection of his journey. There were landscapes that breathed with the essence of the surrounding countryside, portraits of his family members rendered with tenderness and warmth, and still lifes that captured the quiet beauty of everyday objects. Sometimes a grandchild would point to a painting and ask, "Grandpa, what's that story?" And Elias, with a twinkle in his eye, would weave a tale around the image, a story about the light, the colors, the feeling he had tried to capture. In these moments, he was not just a painter, but a storyteller, his art and his words intertwining to create something truly magical for the young, impressionable minds listening intently. The old house, once filled with the echoes of nascent dreams, was now vibrant with their full, gentle bloom. The scent of paint, the quiet hum of creation, the shared moments of artistic contemplation, these were the new melodies that filled its ancient halls. Elias, the father who had quietly set aside his aspirations for the sake of his family, had in the twilight of his years found a way to honor both the profound journey of fatherhood and the enduring whispers of his own creative heart. And in doing so, he showed that the most beautiful dreams are not always the loudest or the most ambitious, but often the ones that quietly persevere, waiting patiently for their moment to unfurl, enriched by the very life that seemed to delay their blossoming. The wisdom of age had taught him that life isn't about choosing one dream over another, but about finding the intricate ways in which all our aspirations, big and small, can eventually intertwine and create a masterpiece of their own. One crisp autumn morning, Elias was painting a still life of a bowl of apples from their own orchard. The light was particularly good, casting long, soft shadows. He was completely absorbed, his mind quiet and focused. Sarah walked in, carrying 2 mugs of steaming coffee. She placed one on a small table beside him and watched him for a few moments. "That's beautiful, Elias," she said softly, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "You really have a gift." He smiled, not taking his eyes off the canvas. "It's a gift I almost forgot I had," he mused, "but it feels good to use it again." Sarah sat down in the armchair nearby, sipping her coffee. "You know," she began, her voice thoughtful, "I always admired how you put us first, how you never complained, never regretted what you might have set aside." Elias finally looked at her, his gaze tender. "There was nothing to regret, my love. You and the children were and still are everything to me. My dreams simply adapted, shifted. They didn't disappear." He paused, then added, "Perhaps in a way they grew richer, infused with all the love and experiences of our life together. The colors I use now, they feel deeper, more nuanced, because they carry the weight of all those years, all those memories." Sarah reached out and gently squeezed his hand. "And now," she said, her voice a warm whisper, "we get to see those colors burst forth. It's a joy to witness." He turned back to his painting, a quiet contentment settling over him. The apples on his canvas seemed to glow with an inner light, each brushstroke a testament to a life lived fully, a heart overflowing with gratitude. The forgotten dreams had not just been remembered, they had been embraced, integrated, and transformed into something even more profound, a testament to the enduring human spirit and the quiet power of a father's love. The old house, now a gallery of his rediscovered passion, hummed with a gentle energy, a peaceful symphony of past and present, of dreams remembered and dreams fulfilled. Sometimes visitors would comment on his paintings, perhaps a neighbor dropping by for a chat or a distant relative on a holiday visit. They would express surprise, even admiration at his artistic talent, often asking, "Elias, where did you learn to paint like this? Why have we never seen your work before?" And he would simply smile, his eyes twinkling, and reply, "Oh, I've been painting for a very long time, just not always on canvas." A subtle joke, perhaps, but one that held a deeper truth. He had been painting his life, meticulously, patiently, with broad strokes of love and fine details of dedication. His children, when they were older and saw his renewed passion, sometimes felt a pang of something akin to guilt. Daniel, the pragmatic engineer, once confessed, "Dad, I sometimes wonder if we held you back, if you would have been a famous artist if it weren't for us." Elias had simply laughed, a warm, reassuring sound. "Never, son, never. You never held me back. You propelled me forward. You gave me a purpose, a reason far greater than any gallery exhibition could ever provide." And he truly believed that. His artistic journey now felt less like a race to a finish line and more like a gentle meander through a beautiful garden. There was no pressure, no external judgment, just the pure, unadulterated joy of creation. He painted for himself, for his heart, for the sheer pleasure of it. And in doing so, his work seemed to possess an honesty, a soulful quality that might have been absent had he pursued it with the ambition of his youth. The forgotten dreams of a father were not just about painting. They were about the inherent capacity of the human spirit to adapt, to nurture, and to ultimately find fulfillment in unexpected ways. They were a quiet testament to the idea that life's true masterpieces are often found not in grand public displays, but in the intimate, unassuming acts of love, sacrifice, and enduring commitment. And when, in the gentle autumn of life, those quieter aspirations are finally given space to bloom, they do so with a beauty that is both profound and deeply moving. The sun continued its slow descent, casting longer shadows across Elias' canvas. He added a final touch of highlight to an apple, a glint of sunlight catching its smooth skin. He leaned back, exhaling softly, a deep sense of satisfaction warming him from within. The painting was complete. It was a simple scene, yet it held a universe of meaning for him. It was a reflection of home, of abundance, of the quiet beauty he had learned to appreciate in his later years. He knew that as long as his hands could hold a brush, as long as his eyes could discern the subtle nuances of color and light, he would continue to paint. Not because he had to, or because he felt he had lost time to make up for, but simply because it was now a natural extension of who he was. The forgotten dreams had found their voice, and that voice was a gentle, unwavering melody, painting the world one canvas at a time. The old house, a sentinel against the passing seasons, would continue to bear witness to this beautiful, quiet symphony of a life lived, loved, and finally painted in all its glorious, heartfelt hues.